There is a moment in the spiritual journey that no one tells you about. A moment when you've already read enough books, practiced meditation, listened to the masters, and yet, something inside you begins to disintegrate. Not in a poetic way, in a real way. You start to feel strange, out of place, as if the ground you've stood on for years has disappeared, and in its place there is only a silent void that no one around you can see. Sri Anandamayi Ma said, "The closer to the truth, the stranger the seeker becomes." And what if I told you that this strangeness is not a problem to be solved, but the first real sign that you are getting there? Jainara. This video is not about technique. It's not about breathing, visualization, or another spiritual method. It's about what happens before all of that. When the seeker begins to realize that what was being sought was always here, and that perhaps the very act of seeking is what hides it. If you've made it this far, it's because you felt there was more. More than the automatic life. More than the looping thoughts. More than the identity you carry like old clothes that no longer fit. You are no longer who you were, but you still don't know who you are. Before continuing, if these words already touch something in you, click like now. This helps the channel reach those who need to hear this. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. What we explore here is guided contemplation taken seriously. There is an almost universal belief among those who enter the spiritual path. It is not spoken out loud, but it is present in almost every journey, in almost every seeker who has ever sat down to meditate with real intention. If I practice enough, if I learn enough, if I become a good enough person, then one day I will wake up. One day I will become enlightened. One day I will finally find myself. And this belief seems absolutely reasonable. It even seems noble. After all, you make an effort with genuine sincerity. You give up things that other people don't even question. You study deep teachings while the world around you consumes empty entertainment. You meditate. You observe your patterns. You work on yourself with a level of dedication that few people around you can even understand. It feels like the truth is at the end of a long road, and that you simply haven't reached it yet. This interpretation feels so natural, so established, that rarely does anyone dare to question it. And that is exactly why it needs to be questioned now, carefully, but clearly. There is something that no one points out directly. The sacred texts suggest it, the masters hint at it between the lines. But it is rarely said clearly enough to land. The mind that seeks is the same mind that creates the distance. When you accumulate spiritual experiences, when you grow in practice, when you deepen your understanding of teachings, something very subtle begins to happen. The ego, extremely intelligent and adaptable, starts to appropriate the spiritual path itself. It builds a new identity, the identity of the spiritual seeker. And the sincere seeker, the dedicated practitioner, the humble student, is an identity like any other. Sophisticated, refined, spiritually presentable, but still a construction of the mind about itself. Anandamayi Ma saw this repeatedly. Seekers arrived carrying years of practice and genuine experiences, and still trapped, not for lack of dedication, but because the one who was dedicated was still the ego disguised as a seeker. And the further you go on this path, the stranger you seem to the world around you. There was a night when I was sitting in silence after a long practice, tired but present. Suddenly, a thought arose with unsettling clarity. Who is practicing? It was not a philosophical question. It was visceral, urgent. And for a moment, just a moment, there was no answer. There was only presence, living silence. A space without edges, without a name, without personal history. And then the mind returned. It immediately began to analyze, categorize, and archive what had happened. That's how the ego works. Even in the face of openness, it wants to own the experience. It needs to turn even silence into content. This is what Anandamayi Ma called strangeness. Not a collapse of the journey, a real opening within it. Now, if you feel that this inquiry needs to go deeper, if you want not only to hear, but to inhabit this inquiry with structure, depth, and clarity, there is material created exactly for this moment in the journey. The ebook, The Awakening of the Observer, is a contemplative guide, not a manual of techniques. It is a map to help you recognize what is already present, but which the mind in seeking mode constantly overlooks without noticing. Every page was written to be felt before being understood, read slowly, like someone who contemplates rather than merely consumes. The link is in the description. But stay here, because what comes next is the heart of this video. Let's do something now, together. You've spent your entire life reading reality from the inside out. You wake up, and immediately the flow begins. Thoughts, sensations, memories, plans, judgments, reactions, and you, what you call I, are at the center of that flow, trying to manage everything, trying to understand everything, trying to be better than yesterday. But what if this reading is completely inverted? What if the I you believe to be the center of everything is not the observer, but just another object within a much larger field of observation that you never needed to build, because it already was? The teachings of non-duality are not philosophical abstractions. They point to something extremely concrete and immediate. There is a consciousness prior to thought, a presence that does not depend on what you feel in this moment, what you think about yourself, or what you believe you are capable of achieving. Anandamayi Ma did not teach this as a doctrine to be memorized. She taught through what she was in each moment. People would arrive and simply become calm, not because she said the right words, but because in her presence, the weight of identity became lighter. It was possible, for an instant, to be without needing to become. This is the great inversion. You do not need to become conscious. You already are consciousness. The question, the only real question that matters, is, what is in the way of you recognizing this now? Direct seeing is not a special experience reserved for the enlightened. It is not an altered state that happens after decades of practice. It is not something you achieve at the end of a long and exhausting journey. It is what remains when you stop overlaying stories about what you are. Right now, as you hear these words, there is something here that is hearing. Something that does not need to be created because it has never ceased to exist. Something that was not learned in any spiritual course. Something that cannot be destroyed by any identity crisis, by any loss, by any collapse of belief. That something is not in the future of your journey. It does not appear after the next meditation or the next retreat. It is the silent foundation of every journey. It is what you have always been, even before you started seeking. The seeker becomes strange when they begin to feel this, because everything they built as identity, the practices, the teachings, the role of the seeker, begins to feel optional. Useful, perhaps, but not essential to what you truly are. And this is the sign Anandamayi Ma described. The strangeness is not the problem. The strangeness is awakening, trying to pass through the last layer of resistance that still believes it needs to be passed through. We return to the beginning. Do you remember what I said? There is a moment in the spiritual journey that no one tells you about. Now you know what that moment is. It is when the seeker begins to suspect that what they seek is not outside. It is when the practice itself begins to reveal the practitioner as a construction. It is when the spiritual identity, so carefully cultivated over years of sincere effort, begins to feel like just another layer rather than a real arrival. Sri Anandamayi Ma did not say this to discourage anyone. She said it because she loved too deeply to let anyone remain trapped in a search that does not need to end outside of themselves. Today you learned that the seeker's strangeness is not weakness, it is proximity, that the mind that seeks unknowingly creates the distance it tries to cross, that the ego is intelligent enough to wear spiritual clothing and keep operating unseen, and that the consciousness you are looking for is not a future achievement. It is the silent presence that is here now, before any thought, before any practice. If you want to continue this inquiry in a guided way, the ebook, The Awakening of the Observer, is the next natural step. Not as another book to accumulate, but as a space to contemplate what is already being pointed to here. The link is in the description just below. And if you want me to keep going deeper into these themes, comment with the word awakening. That tells me you are here with real intention. I say goodbye the way I always do. Not with ready-made answers, but with a question for you to carry with you today, and in all the days that follow. Who is hearing this? Until the next video.